It's open. And we're live. Aha. Hello, folks. Just popping a wee bit early, as always, just to check everything's working okay. Pardon me, my usual coughing and spluttering out of the way. As always. So if anybody's out there nice and early, say hello. But I'm Doc Sloan, and we'll be starting our Children of Dune club in just a moment or two at 10 o'clock. And tonight we'll be doing chapter 10. Which is going to have a look at a conversation between Jessica and Ghanima, between grandmother and granddaughter. And it's quite an interesting little chapter. Another little short one as well, you know. So if anybody's out there, say hello. I'm just getting organized as usual, looking for paperweights. Paperweights that don't lens. Let's see, I'll just put that there. How are we doing for time? We're okay. There we go. There's Sean Wyland saying good evening, Sean. How you doing? Hope you're keeping well. Thanks for joining us as always. Good to see you. There we go. Actually, that's a rubbish paper. Hang on. Just going to have to fold that out a wee bit. My desk is an absolute, the whole house is an absolute tip as always, Sean, because we're kind of shifting rooms about at the minute and decorating and trying to make and get rid of furniture and all sorts of things. It's just a nightmare. At the moment, I suppose it's not too bad behind me. But things are starting to change around me a wee bit, I suppose, you know. But there we go. But I've got me, right, let's see, I've got me juice, got me notes, got me copy of the book, and we're at 10 o'clock. There you go, perfect. So I'll say hello, everyone. My name's Doc Sloan. Thanks very much for joining me here at the Doghouse, which is on my YouTube channel, Doc Sloan Science Fiction Station. And tonight we're going to be having a look at chapter 10. Of Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. We're settling into what we hope is, by the way, a regular slot. So we've had, over the last, I suppose, few chapters, we've had to do a few bits and bouncing, bit of bouncing about here and there. Pardon me, just with life being very, very busy, which it still continues to be. But this time allows me to kind of, this extra hour a wee bit later just allows me to kind of get, keeps me covered, basically, makes life a lot easier. And it's going to pretty much ensure that I can get these done in time. So it's this is where we'll be at from now on. It'll always be 10 o'clock on a Thursday, as long as everything goes okay. And it seems that our new microphone, I'm delighted to say, has fixed a lot of problems. And I'm hoping anyway. I'm hoping there wasn't a lot of clicks and stuff. Oh, for goodness, stacks of echo. Dog, the audio's got stacks of echo, has it? Thank you very much. That says Sootpot. Hiya, Sootpot. How you doing? Oh, the irony of it. Let me see. I have it set up exactly the way the old one is. Bear with me a wee second. The controls around the back. What have we got? Super carry out. Let's see. I can barely see that. Sorry, folks. I'm going to need to see if I can get a. I thought I had a little light to shine on that here. I can't see that at all. Don't even stacks of echo. Right, that's headphone control. Bear with me a wee second, folks. I'll just quickly set the settings on. Bear with me. Didn't realise we were muted there. Sorry, bear with me a wee second, folks. I've got a magnifying glass and let's see what we're at here. We're back. We're upside down. There we go. A wee bit. Okay. No, we're good. Let's see. Soup pot. I've got testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. How does that sound? If you wouldn't mind. That's assuming anybody hear me okay there. Stacks of echo. Is still the case, Soup pot? Could you maybe let me know? How do we tweak it? Just the same. Oh dear. It's the same as last week. Last week was good. Let me have a wee look. What's going on here? All connected up, etc., etc. Honest to goodness, if it's not one thing, it's something, isn't it? Let me see. What can we do? We can mute. No. Let's try that. How about a wee bit further away? Lots of echo. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Sounds fine to me, says Carlos. Let's see. Just the same. Oh, I was delighted, Soup Pot, because last week I'd seems I'm getting quite a quite a loud register on it there here. Than I normally do, actually down at the bottom. But perhaps it's me. 1 sec. No worries. It's all. I don't mind. Sometimes it's almost always me, Soup Pot. But have a wee check there, mate. Thank you. If anybody else could let me know. Does it sound if I've got lots of echo? Just to get a wee sort of consensus, folks, because I'd like to get the sound sorted before we get going. I've moved it back a wee bit here, hopefully. But as I said, I kept the settings on my old microphone. I pretty much bought my bad. So sorry. You sure, Soup? Oh, no, not to worry, not at all. No, that's okay. I'm just relieved. Because I generally we've been getting lots of clicks and clacks and all sorts of problems and spikes and stuff. And I tried pretty much everything, and I bit the bullet and bought this new microphone. But I thought the old one was quite a good one. And I wasn't 100% certain that was the problem, but it seemed to. I was checking the audio on last week's problem, and it seemed to fix a lot of things. That was good. I had you in two pressures. No worries, Soup Pot. No worries. Oh, thank you. Well, that's okay as long as everybody can hear me. All right. I'm testing. Yeah, I've got a wee green register. We should be okay. But anyway, not to worry. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? We'll do that again. I hope you're all keeping well. And welcome to our June book club. One wee quick bit of business, I suppose, before we get jump into it, was I was chatting about Wensicia last week. It was just in relation to her position and who she was as one of those 5 daughters of Shaddam IV. And it was just to go all the way back. We had a wee chat, and I just found it in the old there we go, in the notebooks, which is why we make them. And it was just in relation to the 5 daughters thing, and the fact that kind of whenever we looked initially at Casimir Fenring's, I suppose, the etymology of his name and who possibly the character was based on, we found all sorts of stuff, and we kind of found that he was kind of a composite of a few different guys, and that some of those attributes had been passed over onto Shaddam IV, and one of them was the 5 daughters, by the way. So it was just, I thought I'd quickly look this up, just in terms of Wensicia. But who was it? It was Casimir III, the Great, King of Poland, whose dates are 1310 to 1370. He's the one that had only daughters. And the other 2, by the way, were Count Casimir Felix Badeni, whose dates are 1846 to 1909, and Casimir Comte de Montron, of 1768 to 1843. So those were kind of the guys that I had found, along with the Polish name, as it was Kazimierz, something like that. That's my own handwriting defeating me there. It looks like it. Etc., etc. So it was just in terms of the where did the daughter thing come from, etc. Wensicia would have been one of those 5. It was an attribute of the Fenring of the, I suppose, the real, of the tributes of the character of Casimir Fenring. That's what I'm trying to say. Pardon me. No, it sounds much better. Excellent. That's good to hear. No, because the whole we've been having glitches for a while now, and it's been bugging the hell out of me. And I've tried all sorts of things, and as I said, finally the new microphone was I had to just sort of bite the bullet and buy one basically. But I was kind of really hoping that would be the solution to it, and it seems to have fixed a lot of things, which is interesting. I suppose it's a Yeti microphone. It was making me think of they should rename it Nexus 6, shouldn't they, for a 4-year lifespan. There you go. Pardon me. So it's another wee short chapter, folks, tonight. I've got all my fluids here. Throat's still getting there. I'm still a bit wheezy. But I have to say I'm getting a lot less wheezy every day. But it's taking time for some reason. I'm just being impatient, So this is a Jessica and Ghanima meetup. I think it's interesting to point out before we get into the chapter. But essentially within this chapter, what we're getting is, I suppose, a microcosmic view of how the Bene Gesserit operate. As in, behind the scenes, it's the women having a chat here, and there's no men involved. The men have been, we've arranged for them to be somewhere else, if you see what I mean, just on that level. But it's also a grandmother meeting a granddaughter. And in a funny way, it seems to be a meeting that for some reason seems to be possibly tricky to arrange, but it's something that both sides are trying to make happen. Pardon me. And I suppose what we're going to see is a little bit of it's an interesting exchange between Jessica and Ghanima. And there's a little bit of tragedy within this chapter. And I suppose we're getting to have a look at the Atreides family up close, and I suppose get the sense that as much as we have all that attributed with that family name, we're sort of seeing the forming of factions within this. And they're going to be aimed towards Alia, aren't they? Pardon me. And I suppose part of my question up until now, and again, not having read particularly far forward and have been a long time since I've read this, so it's kind of pretty fresh to me as well. Is I'm trying to figure out is Jessica a Bene Gesserit? Is she back in the fold, if you see what I mean? And I had kind of questions, but there's a hint at it in this chapter, I suppose. But I'm quite possibly she is. I can't remember. But in this chapter, I suppose there's a suggestion of that, I think. So here's our epigraph, quite a lengthy one here. This is from one of the lectures on prescience by Hark al-Ada, who, of course, is, pardon me, is the other name is Farad'n, one of our historians from Dune. So here it is. Either we abandon the long-honored theory of relativity, or we cease to believe that we can engage in continued accurate prediction of the future. Indeed, knowing the future raises a host of questions which cannot be answered under conventional assumptions unless one first projects an observer outside of time and second nullifies all movement. If you accept the theory of relativity, it can be shown that time and the observer must stand still in relationship to each other. Pardon me, in relationship to each other, or inaccuracies will intervene. This would seem to say that it is impossible to engage in accurate prediction of the future. How then do we explain the continued seeking after the visionary goal by respected scientists? How then do we explain Muad'Dib? Pardon me, there we go, there's the throat off. So we've got a bit of scientific name dropping from Frank here. The theory of relativity. He doesn't really say which one, I suppose. And I was curious about this because I was, we've got the jet. Because this is the bit where I was kind of starting to be a bit fuzzy about it. Is that I thought maybe somebody out there can help me out with this one, but I thought pretty much that one allowed for time travel, that kind of thing, and the other one did not. But I was having a quick nosy around Wikipedia, and I've actually got it. Actually, it's got to the point where I've actually got the original papers here. where I probably think I might dig them out and have a read at them. You have a whole book of stuff like that sitting there. It's quite a good book. Pardon me. But simply put, we get an either or sort of thing, don't we? Either we abandon the long honored theory of relativity, or we cease to believe that we can engage in continued accurate prediction of the future. So the suggestion is that they're mutually exclusive. Would that be right? Let me see. Either we get rid of the theory of relativity, do that, or we stop believing that we can engage in continued accurate prediction of the future. I don't agree with that. But anyway, let's see. Indeed, knowing the future raises a host of questions which cannot be answered under conventional assumptions unless one first projects an observer outside of time and second nullifies all movement. If you accept the theory of relativity, it can be shown that time and the observer must stand still in relationship to each other, or inaccuracies will intervene. This would seem to say that it's impossible to engage in accurate prediction of the future. Explain the after the visionary goal by respected scientists. Well, that's kind of easy, that one. How then do we explain Muad'Dib? So it's a sort of a set of or statements, I suppose, if you like. Well, it cannot be answered unless first project. So the idea, I suppose, of if you could step outside of the universe, that kind of thought experiment. If you could step out of the physical universe, then that would be time. Would time cease? For you, I suppose, but within that, would you see the entire self-contained universe from beginning to end? That kind of thing. Oh goodness gracious! I don't want to jump into it at all. It's a complete mess. You need your Brian Coxes and your Neil deGrasse Tysons for this kind of stuff, don't you? Dear. Carlos is saying, I wonder how many pregnant concubines died at Bene Gesserit hands to ensure there were no male heir for House Carino. And Carlos, you're assuming as well that concubines and things like that's kind of, you don't get the suggestion possibly that, again, kind of with royalty and clandestine relationships that there would be bastards here and bastards there. And, that's something that Game of Thrones is quite good at showing, isn't it? But that there might be, but it's, I would say at the same time, different concubines, they quite possibly would be Bene Gesserit trained, and can just, again, it's within their physiology. It's possibly one, I mean, the thing about Shaddam IV, I suppose, and again, you can consider how many wives, how many concubines, this kind of thing. Does he have, and that he can have as many as he likes and roll them in over the years of his empire. At some point where they only produce girls, and that's possibly not a known trait within his family line, that he might start asking questions about the whole thing, especially when he probably understands the Bene Gesserit a bit, But yeah, where was I going? What was I thinking about that? I know where I was going with it in my head. If you had, if you kept having only female children, I suppose there's 5, but we're assuming, I get what you're saying, Carlos, that there could be many that didn't kind of make it, that were terminated in some way or another, But it was reminding me on the coin toss in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. He might come to the conclusion that he's a character in a book. Sorry, I'm being cheeky. Pardon me. Valiant Comics built a universe on the theory that time is not absolute. In their story, time only seemed linear when viewed from within, when actually all time existed simultaneously. Philip K. Dick's got a good. There's one of his speeches on YouTube. It's in France, I think, and it's talking about different time moving sideways and stuff like this. His experience of it, and has different realities and stuff occurring simultaneously. That's quite good. It's a really good interview if anyone wants to check it out. there's a version of it where there's I suppose it's in France, so he's being asked questions in French, and then he's responding. And then there's a translation, so that there's a version of that interview where all the French bit has been removed and it's all been tidied up, and it comes across as like a big long speech. It's quite interesting, Pardon me. I'm kind of getting the gist that the world of physics is up in the air at the minute. This kind of thing, especially with the James Webb Telescope, that there's all sorts of stuff, appearing, or that current theories are getting problematic. That kind of thing, I think. How do you explain the continued seeking after vision to go by respected scientists? In terms of prediction and things like that, what it simply made me think of was, pardon me, near Earth objects and asteroids and things like that go by, and that we can predict now mathematically, for example, where these things are going to be, how close they're going to pass, etc., etc. Those predictions can go down, and then whenever we get there, we can observe if they're true or not. But there's one due soon, isn't there? Within the next few years, I think it's something that's going to hang around for a bit. Let's see. Is it Apophis? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Excuse me. There you go. That's the AI overview here. It says it's Apophis is a 99942 Apophis. It's a near-Earth asteroid that was discovered in 2004. It says here it's about 1,100 feet across, which is roughly the length of 3 football fields. Its orbit has been precisely determined through 17 years of observations. It says initial observations indicated a small chance of Apophis hitting Earth in 2029, 2036, or 2068. However, radar observations in 2021, other observations have ruled out any chance of impact for at least 100 years. Pardon me, but in April 13th, 2029, it'll pass less than 32,000 kilometers from Earth's surface, and it will be visible to the naked eye from parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia. There you go. Named after the Egyptian god of chaos and destruction. There's the AI overview of that. That's interesting. I haven't really used one of them before. But that's an example of that, for example. That's prediction. It's pretty accurate prediction. And why would scientists want to do that? I think it's kind of obvious. Pardon me. Want to see if something's going to hit us. And if it is, figure out when and figure out a way of moving it, But there we go. But fundamentally, there, I suppose, something about the cessation of continued accurate prediction on the future. And I suppose we're going to find out something from Jessica about prediction here, about Paul's predictions, which is in it. It's a little tidbit, if you like, but it's quite an interesting one. So here we go, folks. It'd be quite funny. I had quite a violent struggle with this bottle of cough medicine just before I came online, because it's got my hands are an absolute mess, and it's got a childproof lock on. So I made sure I did the battle before I came on here. Here we go. This is Jessica. Now, I'm wondering, is there a level of manipulation in this? I'll sort of point out what I mean whenever we get to it. But the gist of it is in this first paragraph. I must tell you something, Jessica said. Even though I know my telling will remind you of many experiences from our mutual past, and this will place you in jeopardy. So I'm going to tell you something, but by doing so, it's going to bring up mutual memories from our mutual past, because they share it, and it's going to put you in danger, most likely. So she paused to see how Ghanima was taking this. And we get our kind of location here and our time coming up as well. So they sat alone, just the two of them, occupying low cushions in a chamber of siege tabac. It had required considerable skill to maneuver this meeting. And Jessica was not at all certain that she had been alone in the manoeuvring. Ghanima had seemed to anticipate and augment every step. It was almost 2 hours after daylight, and the excitements of greeting and all of the recognitions were past. Jessica forced her pulse back to a steady pace and focused her attention into this rock walled room with its dark hangings and yellow cushions. To meet the accumulated tensions, she found herself for the first time in years recalling the litany against fear from the Bene Gesserit rite. So here we have it again. Now, as I've been pointing out, as we've been going through Children of Dune, I think there's a fair amount of time has passed from Dune itself, and Frank quite cleverly drops little things back in from previous things in the books, if you like, little things that make us familiar. Sorry, that we're already familiar with, excuse me, and that reinforce our familiarity with this world and its verisimilitude. And we get, here's the litany against fear. We should see that pulled out here again. But he drops a couple of these things, per chapter, if you like. He doesn't throw it all back at you. And interestingly enough, what I thought was kind of funny about that, let me see. So I think it's Frank learning from his writing, if you see what I mean. I want to show you why. Goodness. Oh, come here. Everything's going full. It's like playing book Jenga. Sorry. Let me see. Now, this is to do with different editions of Dune, etc. But I was thinking, was it in the... Bear with me a second. Yeah, it's now again. It depends on what edition you've got because it's a bit different but it was the prologue that was from Dune Messiah that was the weird of Dune, and it's basically almost a name and terminology drop, all within not even 2 pages, if you see what I mean. And it's basically like it's just a recap, but it's not a subtle way of re-immersing a reader in that world, if you see what I mean. And I think that Frank has learned from that, and he does it differently here. And he's dropping little bits. So here we've got the still suits in the previous chat, etc., etc. Different aspects of the Fremen life and culture and stuff to do with the planet, subtly dropped in here. And again, not necessarily to do with the Fremen, the planet here, but this is the Bene Gesserit litany. And as much as we know it, here's the whole thing in the book again, if you see what I mean, in a new book. So I must not fear. I'm sure we all know it. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. There you go. It's fun. I like reading that out. It's good. It's one of those little things, by the way, there's a very interesting fact about this, which was one of those little surprising things, is that in Dune, the first time this is referred to, it's not referred to as the litany against fear. It's referred to as the response to the litany against fear. So that was one of those little things that we found out a long time ago. But ever since then, it's just been the litany against fear. And I wonder if it was a little change that Frank just decided to go with, if you see what I mean. But I always thought that was interesting. So she's afraid, or she's trying to control her fear. And I think this is quite interesting because right away we're going to see that Ghanima is, paying attention and observing and knows exactly what she's doing. And we're told she did this silently and took a deep, calming breath. It helps at times, Ghanima said. The litany, I mean. And Jessica closed her eyes to hide the shock of this insight. It had been a long time since anyone had been able to read her that intimately. The realization was disconcerting, especially when it was ignited by an intellect which hid behind a mask of childhood. Jessica, having faced her fear, Having faced her fear, though, Jessica opened her eyes and knew the source of turmoil. And we wonder what that is. And here it is. Her thoughts are, I fear for my grandchildren. Neither of these children betrayed the stigmata of abomination which Alia flaunted, although Leto showed every sign of some terrifying concealment. Stigmata there, just for example, just to quickly check that one out, is from the Greek word stigma, which is a mark made by a pointed instrument or a dot, but is also considered a mark of disgrace. And then, of course, they're also the wounds that correspond to the wounds of Christ on the cross. Just for anyone just who wants to run that word. But the stigmata, the obvious signs, if you like, of abomination. It was for that reason and here we go. It was for that reason he'd been definitely excluded from this meeting. So neither of them appeared to have any of the obvious signs of abomination that Alia flaunts, but Leto is showing some kind of terrifying concealment. He's hiding and been excluded from here. On impulse, Jessica put aside her ingrained emotional masks. So we have masks again. We have the mask of Ghanima, by the way, is that Ghanima is an intellect which hides behind a mask of childhood. There's a 9-year-old in front of her physically, but it's no 9-year-old mentally, if that makes sense. So on impulse, Jessica put aside her ingrained emotional masks, knowing they'd be of little use here, barriers to communication. Not since those loving moments with her Duke had she lowered these barriers, and she found the action both relief and pain. There remained facts which no curse or prayer or litany could wash away from existence. Flight would not leave such facts behind. They could not be ignored. Elements of Paul's vision had been rearranged, and the times had caught up with his children. They were a magnet in the void, evil and all the sad misuses of power collected around them. Now, a couple of wee things within that there, folks, I thought were quite interesting. And I wouldn't mind your opinions on it myself. But first of all, I suppose, later on we're going to hear Jessica refer to her leaving of Arrakis as cowardly. Just within her thought process here, we just have just following that bit about the facts there, the remaining facts which no curse or prayer or litany could wash away from existence. Flight would not leave such facts behind. They could be not ignored. So I'm just, in terms of that word flight there, to run away from this. I think that's what she feels that she did when she left Arrakis, that she ran away. And of course, as we get to the end of Dune, we don't see Jessica really in Dune Messiah, but as we get to it, she's talked about a wee bit, but she's gone to Caladan. But as we get to the end of Dune, she is definitely world weary, I think, is the of Arrakis, if you see what I mean. And is not that enamored with the place, I think. But to run away from this isn't going to solve things, as it's not going to stop the facts from being what they are. But the other bit that I thought was really interesting here was elements of Paul's vision had been rearranged, and the times had caught up with his children. I think that's a sort of statement that works on lots and lots of different levels, if you see what I mean. Elements of his vision, of his ecological vision, perhaps, of his vision of power, and possibly also his prescient vision in terms of what things that he saw. But again, you wonder how much of this does Jessica know? But they're a magnet in the void. They're starting to attract all the wrong types of people, because as they get older, they're going to get closer and closer to ultimate power, really. As long as Alia doesn't kill them. Let's see. Ghanima, watching the play of emotions across her grandmother's face, marveled that Jessica had let down her controls. So the idea of that she sees Ghanima as being, far more than what she is. This is no real physically. This is a child in front of me, but this is absolutely no child whatsoever. And that Ghanima wears a mask and uses this, the appearance of a child, um, I suppose to her benefit, if you like. But considers it a mask. It's about getting them to both drop their armor, if you like, and to have a genuine, honest moment with each other. So it's I think with Jessica's approach here is pretty good. It's very diplomatic, and it's kind of I will do this so you can do this. If you see what I mean, we can reciprocate, and get to a point of trust. I think the wee name I gave for this chapter, I just called it Trust Love. Was it Love, Trust, and Abominations? Something like that. um, and actually, I've written trust question mark here at this point. Now, so with catching movements of their heads, remarkably synchronized, both turned, eyes met, and they stared deeply, probingly at each other. Thoughts without spoken words passed between them. Jessica, I wish you to see my fear. And Ghanima, now I know you love me. It was a swift moment of utter trust. So these women dropped the defenses, and both have the ability. I suppose when you say that's again the thing, isn't it? Women, you say, because Ghanima definitely comes across as a strong intellect, but woman and child really is what we really mean. Grandmother and granddaughter drop the respective armor here, and she's able to. I've been doing the litany against fear. I'm afraid for my grandchildren. I want you to see that I'm afraid, because in this case it demonstrates Jessica's love for her grandchildren, and Ghanima is able to see that, if that makes sense. And now I know you love me, because she can see it on, and there's no bullshit. But saying that, there is bullshit. And Jessica's, I think this is interesting, and I think it's a very shortly those barriers, those masks are going to creep back up again, and I think it's an interesting little way that the characters work in this chapter. It's again well drawn characters from Frank here, and I think it's very human. I think, if that makes sense. There was a swift moment of utter trust, and Jessica said, "When your father was but a boy, I brought a Reverend Mother to Caladan to test him." Ghanima nodded. The memory of it was extremely vivid. Now, just before we go on here, I suppose we're talking about myself wondering about Jessica's allegiances at this point. What Jessica said there is very interesting. In relation to Paul, when your father was but a boy, I brought a Reverend Mother to Caladan to test him, and it's that personal pronoun there. I think was interesting, and it's assuming possibly finally a degree of responsibility. But the question is, so Jessica is responsible. What I got from that, and I don't know what anybody else thinks about this, is that it's an admission that Jessica is responsible for bringing Gaius Helen Mohiam to test Paul, rather than after 15 years, if you like, a Reverend Mother figures out he's there and decides to come and test him. Because we've always asked the question, why does it take, especially when they're expecting a daughter, why does it take 15 years for the Bene Gesserit to send someone to speak to Jessica about the matter? And it's possibly just that maybe they don't take that much interest, possibly until these children hit puberty or something like that, or at the cusp of adulthood, if you see what I mean. Yeah, with Paul, that would be better. Yeah, but I just thought it was a very interesting term, and just in terms of personal pronouns here, this is kind of again the questions I've been asking about her allegiances here. And I've wondered about this as well. There's another question I've asked about this statement: when your father was but a boy, I brought a Reverend Mother to Caladan to test him, and particularly because Ghanima nodded, and the memory of it was extremely vivid. And especially from the start of the chapter, Jessica admits that what I'm going, if I say things, it's going to evoke uh, experiences from our mutual past. It's going to, she knows it's going to evoke memories. And so the statement that she made here, I'm wondering, is it, I'm going to say that specifically to evoke specifically that set of memories. If you see it, I mean, I wonder, is it a very particular thing that she says here? But there's also sort of admission that she was responsible for it, I think. I don't know if you agree with me or not, folks, you know. Koroska says, what effect do you think being preborn to Chani as opposed to Jessica had on the twins? Again, this is the interesting thing. If it goes down to genes and stuff, Chani's it's possibly that it's different genes. Carlos, first of all, Jessica's got the Harkonnen genes, doesn't she? And oh, I suppose that's a thing to talk about, by the way, as I have it here. Mohiam's genes, basically. So that's the two lines of descent, if you like, whatever Mohiam's genetics happen to be. If we believe what we're led to believe is that Gaius Helen Mohiam is Jessica's mother, and that the Baron Harkonnen is her father. That's the combination of genes that she has. But regardless of Chani's mother being Fremen, if we like, her father is Liet Kynes, and that's the Kynes genes, I think, which is another house of the Imperium. And I've always considered that's got to be factored in somewhere. There must be. They surely are involved in the Bene Gesserit breeding program. And at this point, if they weren't, surely they are now, if you see what I mean. But certainly the overdose of melange, because of the circumstances, would have been one thing. Because Chani's not, it wouldn't have been possible to poison Jessica that way, would it? I think because of the Bene Gesserit's control of their body. And of course, then we're going to see Jessica take a bit of responsibility for, I suppose, the birth process with Alia, and that she makes a conscious decision. I've often wondered, was it a sort of comment on, with Alia, ultimately wasn't a comment on taking drugs while pregnant, this kind of thing, just within society. Pardon me, this, but again, it makes you wonder what if they'd gone to another whole set of inbreeding, and I suppose it's interesting that Alia and Paul aren't too amused by that, but neither of them being Bene Gesserit in that sense. But Jessica certainly wouldn't be. You get the sense that you go breed with who you're told to breed with, and if it's that there is a big degree of inbreeding going on within the Bene Gesserit program, if it's particularly to reinforce inbreeding within the Harkonnen family. So I've always thought particularly it was the Harkonnen genes that seem to be of particular importance, and that the intersection of the Atreides genes is a little tiny thing. If you see what I mean, just it's almost a random blip, or a random choice in some ways, I think. But it's part of the program, But I've been wondering about where I had kind of got that information about Gaius Hal Mohiam, and I have been wondering over the years, had it come from the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson books, and it hadn't actually. Let me just find it for you. I've got it in front of me. That's a particularly good labeled name, isn't it? Let's find her. Sorry, bear with me a wee second. I wonder what she's under. There she is. It was from the Dune Encyclopedia, folks. I should have probably highlighted it actually. Let me just see if it's here. School teacher, blah, blah, blah. Just running through it. Lengthy file on Reverend Mother Gaia's helm found in the hoard of Dara Espalat reveals her many functions and activities as primary political nature. Training of Jessica and Princess Irulan. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Sorry about this. I really should have highlighted it. I thought I had found it the other day. Oh, I'm not seeing it actually. I must have a. Sorry, right. Mother of Jessica. There you go. That was it. Sorry, just found it. Mother of Jessica references found both in the Book of the Voices, the Journals of Duncan, Idaho, and in Lady Ghanima's commentaries to the Voices add startling information about Reverend Mother Gaia's Helm Mohiam's relationship to the Atreides line. One question that always bothered Ghanima and Empire historians and geneticists was the identity of her father's maternal grandmother. His Harkonnen background apparently distressed Paul Muad'Dib. The clash of blood. His blood was Al Harba's theme in the memorable. The playwright, when dealing with Paul's awareness of himself as the genetic climax of an extended breeding program, gives Paul the famous soliloquy. Oh goodness. Blood, 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 blood. Ladies, behave. I'm wondering how the dog's got it. My wife must be back, actually. I've swallowed in out friend gore so long that shedding the body's water of one more Harkonnen rabble is but to kiss my crysknife and wet it in my very veins. Harkonnen, Atreides, Atreides, Harkonnen. It's all the same, and now at last I'll cry no more, nor shed a solitary tear for any scum. It is myself I weep for, brute. From long dead Vladimir, love from absent Jessica, strength from that father who did die too soon, and who knows what from that nameless woman who bedded that young baron and damned my mother. Blood, 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 blood. So there's part of that almost sounds as if it was written by a young Garth Marenghi. It just says Al Harba focused directly on the question of Paul's unknown grandmother in the playwright's exquisite pun, that nameless woman who damned Paul's mother. The artist so often proceeds more clearly than the historian. But that's who they're talking about, basically. So there you go. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so that was, I was wondering where I had figured that out, where I kind of thought I'd always knew that, and it's always suspected, isn't it? It's the one genealogical question you think would be answered in the book, and it's always left open. But I think it was an obvious little mystery. But it's in the Dune Encyclopedia. The complete authorized guide and companion to Frank Herbert's masterpiece of the imagination. So, with an introduction by Frank, you can consider this. I do consider this canon in many ways. Yeah. There we go. Sorry, folks. I thought I'd read that out to you a wee bit there. Just that's where it was. That's where and there's lots of interviews with Frank sitting down with Wallace C. McNally and stuff, and there's a lot of back and forth, particularly in a lot of those audio interviews that we've sort of sent links up for. There's a fair amount of stuff that they're asking him about that goes into that encyclopedia. So it's not just Wallace C. McNally. There's about another 40, I think, different authors that have made up all the different articles. But if anybody's there's PDFs floating around online. It's kind of been shut down by the Herbert estate, hasn't it? Very sadly. But it's a good read. If you're a Dune fan, check it out. You'll love it. It's great. Illustrated as well. Pardon me. So, sorry, as I said, I was just wondering about her, why that question. When your father was but a boy, I brought a Reverend Mother to Caladan to test him. Ghanima nodded. The memory of it was extremely vivid. And then we Bene Gesserits were always cautious to make sure that the children we raised were human and not animal. One cannot always tell by exterior appearances. And again, there's the personal pronouns there are we, twice, we Bene Gesserits, that's inclusive of herself. We raised. And again, this is this human, not animal thing. that's always been a bit confusing about Dune. Hello, Holly. Got a squeaky dog outside. So Ghanima says to her, "It's the way you were trained," Ghanima said, and the memory flooded into her mind. That old Bene Gesserit, Gaius Helen Mohim. Sorry, at this point I'd written C Encyclopedia. I was going to read that bit, so there we go. I just jumped the gun a wee bit. She'd come to Castle Caladan with her poisoned gone Jabbar and her box of burning pain. Paul's hand, Ganima's own hand in the shared memory, screamed with the agony of that box, while the old woman talked calmly of immediate death if the hand were withdrawn from the pain. And there had been no doubt of the death of that in that needle, held ready against the child's neck, white, the aged voice droned its rationale. So here we have the memory of Mohim's words here. We've had a chat about this whenever we first originally read this. I'll remind you briefly of it at the end of it here. But you've heard of animals chewing off a leg to escape a trap. That's an animal kind of trick. A human would remain in the trap, endure the pain, feigning death that he might kill the trapper and remove a threat to his kind. So we put a big no at that. Simply put, there is scientific evidence. We talked about this ages ago so this is within the first couple of chapters of Dune, it'll be within my notebooks. But there are animals that will wait in the trap, like a human. And at the same time, humans will take off a limb or something if it means surviving, the necessity of doing that to survive a trap. So there's no real separation in the two. It's partly to do with what do we mean by animal and human within this Bene Gesserit idea, if you like. And of course, what we get is and it's because humans are animals. That's the real problem, isn't it? With the whole lot of it. We're going to get, I suppose, the expression of this, these terminologies. We're going to get Ghanima providing a third option that there's human animal, that there's a hybrid, I think, within her language anyway. So Ghanima shook her head against the remembered pain, the burning. Sorry, I'll do that again. Ghanima shook her head against the remembered pain. The burning. That was better, wasn't it? Paul had imagined his skin curling black on that agonized hand within the box, flesh crisping and dropping away with only charred bones remained. Sorry, until only charred bones remained. Now, that's immediately made me think of the hand that the preacher pulls out in the previous chapter. This mummified kind of, not mummified, sorry, but the desert has kind of mummified it and left it desiccated. And that was an image, of Paul's empire and of his religion and ultimately of his agency. And it is actually the clenched fist is one of the two symbols of his empire. And interesting that it all begins with, we always talk about how important hands are, what they represent, and within the Dune universe. It always begins with such terrible destruction to Paul's hand. But of course, it's all in his mind, isn't it? Now, the other thing that's interesting about that, so Ghanima shook her head against the remembered pain, the burning. Paul had imagined his skin curling black on the agonized hand within the box, flesh crisping and dropping away until only charred bones remained. And it had been a trick, the hand unharmed, but sweat stood out on Ghanima's forehead at the memory. And just in relation to the hand, I've written here, in relation to the memory, what about the other hand? Because Paul puts his right hand into the box, and all of that happens. But what's happening to his left hand while he's doing that is he's digging his nails in, and, with the pain, and he actually ends up. If we remember way back then when Paul's doing the Gom Jabbar, he actually injures himself with his own fingertips. And so as much as that pain, there's real pain and real damage left over from the test, but it's on the left hand, not the right. And I always thought that was quite interesting. But Ghanima doesn't remember that. And it made me wonder about the memory itself and how accurate it is. And of course, that's the trick with memory, isn't it, as well? That memories aren't exact recreations, of things that happened, unless you've got a very, very particular, memory. But Jessica says, of course, you remember this in a way that I cannot. And so that's an admission, by the way, of that she knows that, she'll remember this a particular way. And so just made me think, is it the certain things that she's saying designed to provoke certain memories that they would share, if that makes sense, and as possibly an attempt to get empathy with Ghanima and vice versa, possibly. Ghanima says, with Ghanima here, it's for a moment memory driven. Ghanima saw her grandmother in a different light. This is what I was thinking about this, but here's possibly as Ghanima thinking what I'm thinking. With what this woman might do out of the driving necessities of that early conditioning in the Bene Gesserit schools, it raised new questions about Jessica's return to Arrakis. And again, with her language there, this has been my question: is she Bene Gesserit? What's she doing here? And what I could come up with is she's here to test the kids? Is she here as a Bene Gesserit? Is she here to take control? Is she here to kill them? Is she here to kill Alia? I've actually got quite a bit of questions that I could ask. What's Jessica doing here? And particularly because I still get the sense that Jessica doesn't want to be on Arrakis. That she'd happily run away from this if she could, but she's a lot tougher than that. She's here to sort stuff out, isn't she? But I think she'd be very happy just to be back on Caladan. And particularly with being back on the planet, it's stirring a lot of old memories up for her, and that's interesting. Again, I suppose, because then we get to see that these kids have those memories too. That they can, we'll see Ghanima sort of attempt to have a bit of, use that to have a bit of empathy with her here. So again, trying to be truthful here, but this is where I don't know whether this is a mistake, being stupid, or an outright lie. But Jessica says this: it would be stupid to repeat such a test on you or your brother, as in the Gom Jabbar. Jessica said, you already know the way it went. I must assume you're human, that you will not misuse your inherited powers. And it's possibly one of the most ridiculous statements that's come out of the Dune universe, as if anybody would buy that. I'm just going to assume that you are what you say you are. Me, a Bene Gesserit, with all of these skills and powers and abilities. I'll be fine. This kind of... I'm sure you're fine. And it really reads... It's a bit like... very interestingly, the way Frank does little things. Within the previous chapters, we've got a kind of two characters there that we can kind of almost compare to these two in this conversation in a way. In a funny way. It was just the bit where... What of it was the bit where when Sissia said friend, that just rang so untrue. And this bit here is the thing that rings so untrue. If we know Jessica's character well enough, it's just like, what's she at here? And I'd scribbled this all down, by the way, because I'm about to turn the page, and it was all there anyway. It's one of those things where me preempting exactly what's written pretty much on the next line. But it'd be stupid to repeat such a test on you or your brother, Jessica said. You already know the way it went. So you're wise to the test, so you know what to do. I must assume you're a human, and that you'll not misuse your inherited powers. So it means that, here we go. So underneath that, I went, really? And is that a Bene Gesserit mistake, or is that a big lie, or what's going on here? And then Ghanima just calls out the bullshit of it, straight as a die here. But you don't make that assumption at all, Ghanima said. So just crap. It's almost what on earth are you saying? You don't do that. It's an outright lie. And Jessica blinked and realized that the barriers had been creeping back in place, and dropped them once more. And she asked, will you believe my love for you? So it's just, she got caught trying to be sneaky Bene Gesserit there, I think. She tried to deceive Ghanima. It was a really stupid deception by Jessica, and it's possibly so daft and overt that I'm wondering, was it deliberate to provoke that response? But I don't think so. I think it's just earnestly, excuse me, I think it's a bit of her Bene Gesserit skills creeping back in and being cheeky, not realizing too much what's sitting across from her, I think. But I've just written out here that she calls out Jessica's liar BS here, but you don't make that assumption at all. Ghanima said it's and again, Ghanima's character is pretty full on, pretty straightforward, pretty clever so far. Jessica blinked, realizing that the barriers had been creeping back in place, dropped them once more, and she asked, "Will you believe my love for you?" And it's again, this is an earnest thing. So we've had they've got this utter trust previously from dropping the barriers. Now they bring now by dropping the barriers again, we bring love to the table. Ghanima, and it's again on a couple of different levels, but Ghanima's speech here is pretty interesting. Yes, Ghanima realized as Jessica started to speak, but that love stopped you from destroying us. Oh, I know the reasoning. Better the animal human die than it recreate itself. And that's especially true if the animal human bears the name Atreides. And this response, I suppose, gets Jessica to blurt something out here. She says, "You at least are human," Jessica blurted. "I trust my instinct on this." As opposed to assuming something that's more of an instinct, but I think it's based on that speech. So what's the reasoning? Why the Bene Gesserit kill Abomination? Is they want, based on what Ghanima says, which looks like it's bang on, it's the truth, is that they don't want reproduction of psychopaths and other memory, I suppose, are by individuals who are controlled by other memory. Etc. So they don't, and they particularly don't want such mad individuals from history, if you like, resurfacing in this way as well. But that's it. Better they don't want it to reproduce. Better the animal human die than it recreate itself. And again, I wonder, is that it sounds a bit religious almost, and is it part of a thing that they've created as part of the control to be in control of their breeding program? As well as it's a particular thing that they wish to whittle out, if you like. Will not grow any of those, this kind of thing. But this response, "You at least are human," Jessica blurted. That almost suggests a little bit of a loss of control. But I trust my instinct on this. That sounds a bit more honest than I'm going to assume you're a human. But again, Ghanima picks up at "you at least" to the minimum at "you." It doesn't say anything about Leto. Ghanima saw the truth in this and said, "So she does believe that I'm human, but you're not sure about Leto. You're not sure of Leto." "I'm not." "Abomination?" Jessica could only nod. I'm sorry, I was doing that a wee bit in a funny voice, but we've had a couple of abominations so far within the book, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's quite lyrical, I think. It makes me giggle. Dear, oh dear. Sorry about all the squeaking as our Holly's enjoying her her squeaky lobster behind us. Ghanima said, so Jessica could only nod. Ghanima said, "Not yet, at least. We both know the danger of it, though. We can see the way of it in Alia." And Jessica cupped her hands over her eyes and thought, even love can't protect us from unwanted facts. And she knew then that she still loved her daughter, crying out silently against fate. "Alia, oh Alia, I'm sorry for my part in your destruction." Now, just within that, Ghanima is saying, not yet, at least. Is Leto an abomination? No, he's not at the minute, is what she's saying. Not yet, at least. But we both know the danger of it. How do we know that? Because we've seen it happen. We've seen it through Alia. And this statement by Ghanima is an acknowledgement that Alia is an abomination, and it's confirmation as well for Jessica. And this is that I think the moment hits her hard here. Just it's true, isn't it? As much as she already knows, it's someone else, confirming it. It's not, and someone else who's capable of confirming it. I think. But even love can't protect us from unwanted facts. And I think that's her own love for Alia, that she couldn't protect her, and she knew you can't protect her from this either. She knew that she still loved her daughter, crying out silently against fate. Alia, oh Alia, I'm sorry for my part in your destruction. And yeah, Jessica's decision is quite, what happens to Alia could be prevented, and it is entirely Jessica's deliberate and overt choice to do what she does, knowing that she's pregnant. And as a Bene Gesserit, she would also know the consequences, because the Sayadinas do, don't they? But she's sorry. For my part in your destruction. And again, I suppose if the barriers are down, everyone's being honest here, if you like. That's another admission of truth. It is partly her fault. And that's kind of one of the things that runs within the Dune series is the things that I suppose the generation, it's the attribute of the Atreides family, isn't it? But it's the things our families inflict upon us and the next generation, this kind of thing. And again, if we consider Alia and Paul, what really happened, the product of these like breeding programs and all this stuff, and as Paul points out to them at one point, you take a lot upon yourselves, don't you? I think it's a very astute point. But yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Alia, the tragedy of Alia, I think, is going to be, well, we're going to see it all played out throughout this. But the real sense that, again, the difference, the idea that the Atreides love each other, but they'd happily kill each other, if you see what I mean. As Ghanima points out, the fact that, that love wouldn't stop you from destroying us, Jessica loves Alia, but it's not going to stop her from trying to destroy her daughter either. This kind of thing, And Alia loves, they all do love each other, I suppose, but they're all going to go at each other. Poor old Atreides, But again, I love this that, and these are her thoughts, by the way. Even love can't protect us from unwanted facts, and she knew that. Blah, Alia, oh Alia. None of that's said out loud, as far as I can tell. Let me just check that last bit. The first bit's in her internal thoughts. Yeah, no, it's all internalized. So she's not saying it out loud, but Ghanima cleared her throat loudly. And Jessica lowered her hands and thought, I may mourn my poor daughter, but there are other necessities now. Ever the pragmatist, I suppose. So you recognize what happened to Alia. Sorry, she said, so you recognize what happened to Alia. Leto and I watched it happen. We were powerless to prevent it, although we discussed many possibilities. Jessica says, you're sure that your brother is free of this curse? I'm sure. So in other words, Leto is not an abomination. And I'm trying to remember, but I do have memories of the end of the book. I'm trying to remember if actually he is at this point, or that it takes a while for him to become, or that they're deliberate. I'm not 100% sure if he is or isn't at this point. If you see what I mean. And again, as much as this meeting has been mutually arranged, Ghanima has, augmented the things that Jessica does to make it happen, but also in the sense that Leto's not here, it's quite possible that's what Leto and Ghanima want as well, as much as Jessica might think it might be her idea. I think it's possibly a mutually desired thing, Let's see. So the quiet assurance in that statement could not be denied. Jessica found herself accepting it. Then, how is it you've escaped? And Ghanima explained the theory upon which she and Leto had settled, that their avoiding of the spice trance While Alia entered it often made the difference. So that's that we avoid it, she goes at it all the time, basically. She went on to reveal his dreams and the plans they'd discussed, even Jacurutu. So they're putting their cards on the table. And here's the statement, really. Alia is an Atreides, though, and that poses enormous problems. And I've kind of went, well, such as? I wonder what those are. There's Julian saying, hi, everybody. Hi, Julian. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us, oh, dear, we're getting there. But, yeah, still at the work, by the way, Julian, but I'll be getting in touch. So we've been up to our eyeballs this week here, folks. We've had stuff to do with the house. And my son Matthew passed his second part of his driving test, the actual driving bit. So we've been trying to get his car sorted for the MOT, and it failed on some little tiny hole in the arch or something like that. But we've been running about like headless chickens all week, trying to get all sorts of stuff done. But our house is a bit up in the air at the minute. But yeah, increase of students as well, but settling into a kind of a routine of work. So I'll be in touch soon, Julian, hopefully. But good to see you here, by the way. And yeah, but to get on with a few things here on the station, folks, I think, which I'm looking forward to. Now, so that's it. They reckon at this point, Alia goes into the spice trance. We avoid it pretty much, and she goes into it often, is the way it's put here. Goes on to reveal his dreams, etc. Alia's in Atreides, though, and that poses enormous problems. Again, I've said such as, but basically in terms of how to deal with her, one, she's a regent. Two, I suppose they're the imperial royal family, technically. Three, it's an in-house problem, if you see what I mean. And four, she's probably the most politically, and religiously out there Atreides, if you see what I mean, in relation to the mob and the people, and that she's obviously got a few sort of cultish people around her as well. She's in a position of power. She's going to be tricky to deal with, but it's still her daughter, isn't it? Enormous problems. Ghanima fell silent before the sudden realization that Jessica still mourned her Duke, as though his death had been but yesterday, that she would guard his name and memory against all threats. Personal memories from the Duke's own lifetime fled through Ghanima's awareness to reinforce this assessment, to soften it with understanding. And that's, again, using the memories, personal memories from the Duke's own lifetime. She's checking out her dad's own memory, her grandfather's own memories, and using that to better understand her her grandmother. Keep doing that with Jessica. Better understand Jessica, to reinforce this assessment. Yeah, and soften it with understanding. It's still pretty tough for her here. And it just everything I think reminds her of Leto. Now, Jessica said, voice brisk, what about this preacher? I heard some disquieting reports yesterday after that damnable lustration. Ghanima shrugged. He could be Paul. Yes, but we haven't seen him to examine. Javid laughs at the rumours, Jessica said. Ghanima hesitated. Then, do you trust this Javid? A grim smile touched Jessica's lips. No more than you do, which is a no. It's a hard no. Ghanima said then, Leto says Javid laughs at the wrong things. So much for Javid's laughter, Jessica said. But do you actually entertain the notion that my son is still alive, that he has returned in this guise? We say it's possible. And Leto, Ghanima found her mouth suddenly dry. Remembered fears clutching her breast. She forced herself to overcome them, recounted Leto's other revelations of prescient dreams. So full disclosure really here. Jessica moved her head from side to side as though wounded. Ghanima said, Leto says he must find the preacher and make sure. Yes, of course. In other words, yeah, it's a good chance it is Paul. It's one of those things that the preacher is a mysterious character, throughout the book, but there's very little mystery about him. And it's one of those things that Frank likes to do, isn't it? That some obvious things are kind of just what they are, others not so much. And while there's other mysteries to be had, I suppose. But this is probably quite a bit to take in for Jessica. That your son, there's a blind preacher out there that resembles your son. It might be him. And if that's the case, then he could sit back on the throne, couldn't he? Technically, which would really mess with everybody's plans. Ghanima said, Leto says he must find the preacher and make sure. Jessica, yes, of course. I should never have left here. It was cowardly of me. And there's that blame again that we were talking about previously. These admissions of Jessica's here, that there's a bunch of them, to be honest, but and it's how she views herself, by the way. I should never let it was cowardly of me. That's a self-admission there. But Ghanima finds this interesting. Why do you blame yourself? You had reached a limit. I know that. Leto knows it. Even Alia may know it. And Jessica put a hand to her own throat. Yes, the problem of Alia. So again, they have her memories of this. That is it. That's it. She was world weary. She had reached her limit. She'd been through a hell of a lot. And you can, do you want to stay here on this hellish, harsh desert planet, or do you want to go home to your nice, comfy house and your castle, with your nice climate and chill out a bit? I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. But to hold herself, to consider it a cowardly act, it wasn't. It's a healing act, isn't it? It's an act of self-preservation, I thought, especially when she's leaving her son to rule the empire. That's kind of, as a mother, I think you might consider that job done. He's doing well for himself. I think I'll go retire a bit. But the problem of Alia again. Here we go. This bit here, folks. She works a strange attraction on Leto. Ghanima said, "That's why I helped you meet alone with me." He agrees that she is beyond hope, but still he finds ways to be with her and study her, and it's very disturbing. When I try to talk against this, he falls asleep. Is she drugging him? No. Ghanima shook her head. But he has this odd empathy for her. And in his sleep, he often mutters, Jacurutu. That again. And Jessica found herself recounting Gurney's report about the conspirators exposed at the landing field. So again, admission of what's been going on, full disclosure between the two. She works a strange attraction on Leto. We're going to hit the next chapter on it. But is that the Baron? And is that why it's Leto a target and not Ghanima? Is something I was asking there. She says it's very disturbing. Don't like it. Or is it just Alia? And again, is it recognition? This is why I'm asking it. Is Leto an abomination at this point? But just has better control, has a means of controlling it. I'm not too sure. But hence, I suppose the clue is possibly there. What Ghanima is saying is that he has this odd empathy for her. It's not sympathy, it's empathy. But that again, and this Jacurutu, again, the mystery about what is it? Where are we going? What's this all about? That again, so she tells him about the report that all these guys dying at the mention of this word. Ghanima says, I sometimes fear Alia wants Leto to seek out Jacurutu, and I always thought it only a legend. You know it, of course. Terrible story. Terrible. What is it? I don't know. But the mystery here is we still don't know. She doesn't tell us. And that's great. The tension that's building here, the mystery that's building here. They're not just going to give us our answers straight away. What is the mystery of Jacurutu? We've got to find out the hard way, don't we? I think we'll have to go there ourselves. was a terrible story, terrible. So the hype around its building, the mystery around its building. What must we do? Ghanima asked. I fear to search all my memories, all of my lives. Gani, I warn you against that. You mustn't risk. It may happen even if I don't risk it. How do we know what really happened to Alia? The mystery of what happened to Alia. Carlos is saying, given the Baron's proclivities, it would make sense that he would be more attracted to Leto than Ghanima. That's what kind of I figured there. And as much as he's got a female body to move around in, whenever we do see him, yeah, he's not changed. I mean, he's his usual, lusty self, I think. But that's just in terms of the language here. Why Leto, not Ghanima? The separation of the twins in that sense. And, it seems that Alia desires it. By the end of this chapter, we're going to see that Jessica desires it too. But of course, nobody knows it's the Baron yet. I'm really looking forward to sort of exploring the other memory thing with Alia and the Baron and just some of the other characters as well, Leto and Ghanima, because it's a tricky and interesting thing. It's nice to be able to get some notes down on it and focus on it a wee bit, if you like. But it's never worked perfectly, if you see what I mean. Raises all sorts of questions. And it was always about, like, the main one for me was how is the Baron in Ghanima's other memory? Sorry, not Ghanima, Alia's other memory. But we clearly have male and female other memory with Ghanima here, because she's popping into her father's memories. Of his mother, her grandfather's memories. The Duke's personal memories from the Duke's own lifetime fled through Ghanima's awareness to reinforce this assessment. So that's the male line within a female there. And we have to assume that both Ghanima and Leto are not just your ho-hum run-of-the-mill. They're Kwisatz Haderachs, probably, but something different again. What is a Kwisatz Haderach? And all our different Kwisatz Haderachs are slightly different. But it seems that they have the ability to see both male and female other memory. That's one thing. The prescient side of it, of the Kwisatz Haderach, that's another. But Leto looks like he's developing that there with his prescient dreams, though it doesn't seem to be happening for Ghanima. Yeah. And of course, it was always things that aren't the same as Paul's visions. Again, how much did Jessica know? But Paul's visions had one daughter, Ghanima. Not Leto wasn't meant to be here at all. It was meant to be her ruling the universe, wasn't it? Jacurutu. Let's see, what must we do? So Jessica warns her against searching all those memories and delving into other memory. She said it can happen anyway. Regardless of me if I do nothing. So Jessica, no, you could be spared that possession. She ground the word out. Well, Jacurutu is it? I've sent Gurney to find the place if it exists. But how can he? Oh, of course, the smugglers. Jessica found herself silenced by this further example of how Ghanima's mind worked in concert with what must be an inner awareness of others. Of me! How truly strange it was. Jessica thought that the young flesh could carry all of Paul's memories. At least, this is a great one. This is a good Frank Herbert line here. Let me just read that again, folks. Sorry. How truly strange it was, Jessica thought, that this young flesh could carry all of Paul's memories, at least until the moment of Paul's spermal separation from his own past. I thought that was great. So kind of where does the other memory kick in? At the point of his spermal separation from his own past. So I suppose when he ejaculates and conception occurs, I think is that what I get from that? But what a way to put it. I'm not even sure if the way I put it was any better. It was, so the realization that there's all of these other people are in there in her memory, but wow, so am I. I'm in there. And I'm possibly in there advising her against me or telling her what to do to keep me on side, And maybe I should listen to myself. This kind of thing, it would baffle you, wouldn't it? It'd be confusing as hell. How strange it was that this young flesh could carry all of Paul's memories, at least until the moment of Paul's spermal separation from his own past. It was an invasion of privacy against which something primal in Jessica rebelled. Momentarily, she felt herself sinking into the absolute and unswerving Bene Gesserit judgment. Abomination. But there was a sweetness about this child, a willingness to sacrifice for her brother which could not be denied. We are one life, reaching out into a dark future, Jessica thought. We are one blood. And she girded herself to accept the events which she and Gurney had set in motion. Leto must be separated from his sister, must be trained as the sisterhood insisted. And there we go, folks. We've hit the end of the chapter there. And I'm still not 100% sure if she's back with the Bene Gesserit, but it looks very likely, doesn't it? There's a strong suggestion that if Jessica's not back in the fold of the Bene Gesserit, as I said, I kind of wondered why on earth would the Bene Gesserit have her back? You know, why could they possibly trust her to do anything except just as a political token? Really, I think would be the main reason, just because of her relationship to the Kwisatz Haderach and the rest of her family. But the use of the pronouns within this chapter, we Bene Gesserit, etc., etc. Here to look for Abomination. No point in using the Gom Jabbar because you know the results. So the suggestion is that she could have done that. She seems to accept responsibility for bringing Gaius Helmohaim to test Paul Atreides all those years ago, and she accepts her responsibility for what's happened to Alia. Because she took the water of life when she was heavily pregnant, and she could have waited. She could have waited a few months. You see, that was simply the option there. Let's have a look. Where are we? Comments, folks. Let's hang on. Julian said, Leto will likely be Abomination, yes, as he fuses with the God Kings of his ancestral memory and integrates the total unconscious, says Julian. He admits as much to Chenoit next book. I'm looking forward to God Emperor. I can't wait to get there. This is really helping set him up as well, I think. It's good to understand the God Emperor through his childhood, if you like. But yes, indeed. I know he's Abomination. Julian, by the end, I said a long time since I read this. I know by the end of the book he is one, but I'm not sure if he's one here. But it's quite possible. Maybe not yet, as Ghanima suggests. Just trying to figure it out in my own head. Carlos says that I believe he referred to it as benign possession. Yeah, ultimately. I suppose ultimately the Bene Gesserit have a way of dealing with the multitude, isn't it, called Semuflow? But the way, all of these different, and again, you just consider it a part and parcel of other memory with the Bene Gesserit, so that they must have some kind of control over it. But whenever a particular personality takes over, so we're told there that it's the word that Jessica has to grind out there. What's it all about, really? It can't be just that a psychopath has popped into a personality for anyone. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be back. Gosh, what's going on here? It's possession. It's that one personality or even more personalities can take over the host personality. And as much as it's interesting because with the Baron and Alia, and possibly it's the choice of the personality. But what Alia does in the bargain that she makes really with the Baron's personality, ultimately how Leto deals with Abomination it's the same thing as you're saying. It's benign possession. There's Joseph Smith saying, howdy Joseph. Ultimately, Leto chooses one personality to keep everyone else. He picks the ultimate, a god king himself, doesn't he? It's Harem. The Greeks call Cheops. Khufu, that's him. That's who he picks. So he picks one personality that can dominate all the others, and then all he has to do is deal with that one personality and dominate it. If you see what I mean. Um, and I kind of get the sense that that's what's going on with Ali and the barn whenever we get there, and it is where we're heading right away next time, isn't it? I think. Yes, we're going in. Let me just check that quickly. Yeah, that's exactly where we're going. We're going to get to have a look at it for next chapter. I'm really looking forward to it. The Baron is a great villain, and it's interesting to see him come back this way. I don't know for anyone who's interested. By the way, goodness, what am I thinking on? There's a cartoon there's a cartoon called Hellsing. That's it. Have I got a bit of it in here? Japanese cartoon, Japanese anime series called Hellsing, which is particularly good. I quite like it. It's a kind of Dracula hunting vampire things. There's a character, the secondary character in it is called Ceres Victoria, and she carries a gigantic gun, which is her Harkonnen cannon, basically. And at the end of every episode of Hellsing, there's these little short cartoons that you get at the end of some Japanese cartoons, that like Tachikoma Nights and Ghost in the Shell and stuff. There's a cartoon with her, the gun, and the spirit of the gun, if you like, of the personality of the gun. She's having a little, it's Harkonnen, and the endings of these little cartoons are very similar to Alia and the Baron. I don't know if anybody's seen them. I've watched them all. I think they're really bizarre. But yeah, if anybody's got Hellsinger, check it out. It's the little cartoon at the end. I wonder, let me just have a wee look. Has it got a particular name? You might be able to find it on YouTube or something. Let me see. I quite a great theme tune to Hellsing. Let me see. Hang on. I'll just type in the Baron Harkonnen here, see if I can find him on this. Just on. No. What's the no? Let's see out there. I wonder what you would call those wee things at the end of the. But they're quite bizarre. Let's see. No, I'll have a wee nosy for next time. Yeah, it's the little short, they're like 30-second, sort of 1 minute long tops cartoons. I have no idea what you call, but at the end of each episode of Hellsing, I'm not sure. There's a couple of different versions of it. I'll dig it out for next week, folks. Actually, I've got them on DVD. Some of them. I can show you exactly what I mean. But there is a little 30-second to 45-second cartoon featuring the Baron Harkonnen as the spirit of Ceres Victoria's gun. It's like another memory thing. And it's I don't know if it's a pretty obscure one. I don't know if you guys as Dune fans know about it. I've mentioned it a couple of times. But check it out. It's pretty cool. I'll see if I can find a link for it or something if it's about next time. But yes, indeed, it's going to be interesting to see the other memories. It's a particular thing in this book. It's interesting how it works and where the limitations of it are. Where does it start? Where does it begin? Who's there? Excuse me. But yes, indeed, how are we doing? That's not too bad. Hour and a half at it there. These wee chapters are a bit more manageable, aren't they? I think the next one's a bit longer though. Let's just have a wee look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no. Oh yeah, I got a good old size of a chapter next. So the next episode's going to be a good few, we'll probably be at it for a good few hours, I dare say, folks. So looking forward to that. The return of the Baron Harkonnen. The Children of Dune. There we are. So yes indeed. There we go, folks. So that'll do for me for tonight. I'm still trying to save the old voice a wee bit, so I'll not gabble on too much. But I was just to say, we'll be back next week at 10 o'clock on Thursday, as usual. Hope you can all make it. I hope everybody's keeping themselves safe out there and looking after themselves. And as I said, I'm hoping to, it's the 3rd of October here, so hoping to drop some original content, hopefully before Halloween. Pardon me, throat welling and all of that kind of stuff. And possibly get a wee sci-fi Friday in as well at that point, maybe something for Halloween. So there we go. So otherwise, look forward to seeing you next time with Chapter 11 of Children of Dune. For anyone who's not, I know obviously it doesn't have chapters. It's the one that begins with the epigraph. I hear the wind blowing across the desert, and I see the moons of a winter night rise like great ships in the void. Pardon me. So there we go. I'm getting throaty, folks. I'd happily gab a good bit longer, but I think it's best to rest the old throat box. So I'll say thanks very much for joining me tonight, folks. It's been another great chapter. I've enjoyed it. A really good interaction between Jessica and Ghanima. And rather than everybody being, it looks like their sort of sides are being drawn. There's not 100% trust, but there is trust. There's love. But there still remains the fact that we could all kill each other, which I think is a very Atreides thing, you know. There's Babs saying, evening, Doc. Hiya, Babs. How you doing? Tell us the whiz. And howdy, y'all. Babs, I'm just about to say goodnight, I'm afraid. But it's very nice to see you. I hope you're keeping well. Oh, goodness, my eyes. I was just saying I would happily sit on for a wee bit longer, but my throat's still a bit of a mess. Pardon me. As I'm still taking the old cough medicines. Fighting with childproof caps, which is I'm losing. And Carlos saying better late than never, laughing loud. Carlos, by the way, just before I go, what was it you were saying about the big hurricane that was hitting? I hope everybody's okay, etc. And I saw that on the news, a wee bit of it. Not too much because I don't watch the news much anymore. Excuse me. When you get the things and like that in big scales over there, don't you? But I hope all is well there and everybody's okay. Oh dear. But there we go, folks. Just after half an hour. So I will say goodnight and thank you very much for joining me as always. We'll see you next Thursday at 10 p.m. GMT +1. I think we'll lose the GMT +1 at the end of the month. And there we go. So we'll see you next time for Chapter 11 of Children of Dune. Look after yourselves, take care, and I'll see you real soon. Thanks again for joining me. All the best and take care now. Bye-bye.